You reach down to pet it. The tourist next to you already has their phone out, smiling. And in the 2.3 seconds it takes for your hand to make contact, you've just made a decision that sends 4,000 people to emergency rooms every single year. Because that small, round-faced creature looking up at you, it's assessing whether your fingers are a threat worth eliminating. Here's what actually happens in those moments. Most people see large eyes, soft features, small body size, and their brain floods with oxytocin. That's the bonding hormone that makes us want to protect and nurture. But evolution doesn't care about your neurochemistry. That animal's brain is running completely different calculations. And the mismatch between what you're feeling and what it's planning creates a window where people get hurt in ways that genuinely shock them. Let's start with the animal that's currently exploding across social media as the ultimate adorable pet. Despite wildlife biologists spending the last 3 years trying to explain why that's a catastrophically bad idea, the slow loris has a face that looks like it was designed by someone who studied what makes human babies appealing. Massive forward-facing eyes, small nose, rounded head. Videos of them being tickled get millions of views, except they're not enjoying it. That raised arms posture everyone thinks is cute? That's a fear response. They're accessing venom glands in their elbows. Yes, venom. The slow loris is the world's only venomous primate. When threatened, they lick secretions from brachial glands on their arms, mixing them with saliva to activate the toxin. Then they deliver it through a specialized comb of teeth on their lower jaw designed specifically for envenomation. The resulting bite causes anaphylactic shock in roughly 15% of victims. In 2024, researchers at Oxford documented that the venom contains proteins structurally similar to those found in certain cobra species. We're not talking about minor irritation. This is tissue necrosis, severe allergic reactions, and in documented cases, deaths from respiratory failure when people don't reach medical care in time. But here's what makes this particularly insidious. The slow loris has been selected over millions of years to look non-threatening because it's a small nocturnal predator that benefits from being underestimated. Its entire survival strategy depends on looking harmless until it's within striking range. The illegal pet trade has exploded precisely because people see those eyes and completely override the clear biological signals that this animal is chemically armed. Now, if you think venom in a primate is an evolutionary outlier, consider what's happening with an animal that lives in literally millions of households right now, that most people would describe as gentle and low risk. The domesticated rabbit, those soft, twitchy-nosed creatures with the cotton tail. In 2023, emergency room data from the UK National Health Service showed that rabbit bites sent more people to hospitals than dog bites in 3 major urban areas. That doesn't make intuitive sense until you understand what's happening at the biological level. Rabbits have a bite force of approximately 70 newtons concentrated through sharp, continuously growing incisors designed to cut through tough vegetation. But force alone doesn't explain the damage. Rabbit teeth are curved and serrated at the microscopic level. When they bite defensively, and they will bite when cornered, when their territory is invaded, or when they're improperly handled, those teeth don't just puncture, they tear. The resulting wounds have irregular edges that don't close cleanly. Infection rates run above 50% because rabbit mouths harbor Pasteurella multocida, a bacterium that causes rapid onset cellulitis. Within hours, you're looking at swelling, intense pain, and systemic infection if left untreated. The real problem is expectation mismatch. People approach rabbits with the same casual confidence they'd give a hamster. They don't read the warning signs, ears back, tense posture, grinding teeth, because they've been culturally conditioned to see rabbits as harmless. But these are prey animals with prey animal defenses. They've evolved to be simultaneously fearful and capable of inflicting serious damage when that fear tips into defensive aggression. And unlike dogs, which have been selected for thousands of generations to display readable warning signals that humans can interpret. Rabbits haven't. Their body language is subtle. By the time most people realize the rabbit is stressed, they're already bleeding. But let's escalate this because there's a category of cute animal where the danger isn't just individual injury, it's epidemic-level disease transmission that public health officials are currently struggling to contain. And it's happening in a creature that gets hand-fed in parks by people who would never dream they're handling one of the most effective disease vectors in urban environments: squirrels. Specifically, the gray squirrel that's become so common in cities across North America and Europe that people treat them like ambient scenery. Here's what the CDC's 2025 infectious disease surveillance data shows. Squirrels are now the third highest source of rabies exposure incidents in urban areas, behind only bats and raccoons. But unlike those animals, people actively seek out contact with squirrels. They feed them by hand. They let their children approach them. And squirrels, being both highly adaptable and increasingly habituated to human presence, will readily bite when food competition or territorial instincts kick in. The rabies connection is genuinely concerning, but it's not even the primary threat. Squirrels carry leptospirosis, a bacterial infection transmitted through urine that can survive in soil and water for months. When squirrels nest in attics, forage in yards, or defecate near areas where children play, they're creating contamination zones. Human infection occurs through skin contact with contaminated surfaces. You don't even need a bite. Early symptoms mimic flu, which means most cases go undiagnosed until the infection progresses to Wales disease, which causes liver and kidney failure. The 2024 outbreak in Portland, traced back to a single park where people had been feeding squirrels for years, resulted in 18 confirmed cases of leptospirosis. Then there's the plague. Yes, actual bubonic plague. Ground squirrels throughout the western United States are established plague reservoirs. They harbor Yersinia pestis and the fleas that transmit it. Every few years, someone camping or hiking makes the mistake of approaching what looks like a docile, round little animal sitting near their tent. The squirrel's fleas jump, and suddenly public health departments are deploying antibiotics and monitoring for pneumonic plague transmission. This happened in Northern California in 2023, in Colorado in 2024, and the pattern keeps repeating because people fundamentally cannot reconcile cute and fluffy with biohazard. What connects all of these cases? The slow loris venom, the rabbit bite infections, the squirrel disease transmission, is a biological principle that most people have never explicitly considered. It's called survival signaling mismatch. Evolution has produced countless species that benefit from being overlooked, underestimated, or approached without appropriate caution. Their physical features trigger nurturing responses in humans not because they're trying to be cute, but because those features coincidentally map onto the infant schema our brains are wired to respond to. Large eyes, relative to face size, rounded features, small body proportions. These traits evolved for completely different reasons in each species, but they all happen to hijack the same human neural pathways. And there's one more animal that takes this principle to its absolute extreme. One that's currently kept as a pet by thousands of people who have no idea they're living with something that wildlife authorities classify as legitimately dangerous, but can't legally restrict in most jurisdictions because of how the regulatory framework is written. The hedgehog. Those spiny little insectivores with the snuffling noses and the tendency to curl into defensive balls, they've become Instagram famous. Hedgehog cafes have opened in major cities, and veterinarians are quietly documenting a surge in salmonella cases that's tracking directly with the spike in hedgehog ownership. Here's the number that should alarm you. Approximately 90% of hedgehogs carry salmonella in their digestive tract. They shed it constantly through their feces. And because hedgehogs engage in a behavior called self-anointing, where they contort to spread saliva mixed with foreign substances across their spines, They're essentially creating a bacterial distribution system across their entire body. When you handle a hedgehog, you're touching salmonella. When it walks across your counter, your couch, your bed, it's depositing bacteria. The CDC investigated a multi-state outbreak in 2025 that affected 67 people, primarily children and immunocompromised adults, and traced it conclusively to hedgehogs purchased from a single breeding network. Several cases required hospitalization. One resulted in sepsis. And the owners had no idea they were supposed to treat these animals as perpetual contamination risks, because everything about how hedgehogs are marketed emphasizes their novelty and their handleability. But the salmonella isn't even the most biologically fascinating danger. Hedgehogs are one of the few mammals that have developed functional immunity to certain snake venoms and toxins. They can consume poison. They actively seek out toxic substances, chew them, and then foam at the mouth while spreading that foam across their spines in the self-anointing behavior. This creates a chemical defense system where their spines don't just physically deter predators, they potentially carry topical toxins. Research from 2024 out of the University of Helsinki confirmed that hedgehog spines can retain compounds from their environment, including pesticides, heavy metals, and biological toxins, which then get transferred through puncture wounds. People who've been stuck by hedgehog spines report pain disproportionate to the injury, localized swelling, and in some cases allergic reactions likely triggered by contaminated spine content. So now we've established a pattern. Animals that look harmless often carry defensive systems that are either invisible until deployed, culturally misunderstood, or distributed through mechanisms people don't expect. But there's a meta-level danger here that goes beyond any individual species. It's the cognitive bias that emerges from repeated exposure to cute animal content on social media. When you watch endless videos of someone cuddling a slow loris, holding a rabbit, hand-feeding a squirrel, or letting a hedgehog walk across their bed, your brain starts pattern matching. It builds a mental model that says these interactions are normal and safe. This is availability heuristic in action. You're judging risk based on how easily you can recall examples, and social media is flooding your recall system with positive, harm-free encounters. What you're not seeing are the emergency room visits, the infection treatments, the public health investigations. Those don't go viral. They don't get 10 million views. So your risk assessment becomes dangerously skewed. Wildlife rehabilitation centers and exotic veterinarians have been trying to sound this alarm for years. In interviews conducted throughout 2024 with professionals who work directly with these species, the consistent message is that the gap between public perception and biological reality has never been wider. And it's getting worse because the algorithms that govern what content you see are optimized for engagement, not accuracy. Cute animal videos generate enormous engagement. Warnings about zoonotic disease and venom delivery systems do not. The biological mechanisms we've covered, venom activation in primates, serrated tooth tearing, bacterial shedding, plague reservoirs, toxin accumulation, these aren't freak occurrences or outlier cases. They're core survival adaptations that these animals depend on. When we override our caution because something looks appealing, we're not being kind or connecting with nature. We're ignoring millions of years of evolutionary refinement that produced these defenses specifically to handle threats. And from that animal's perspective, we are the threat. Understanding this doesn't mean you need to fear every small animal you encounter. It means you need to respect that cuteness isn't a safety indicator. Those big eyes, soft fur, and compact bodies didn't evolve to make you feel warm and fuzzy. They evolved for completely separate ecological reasons that have nothing to do with human perception. The danger emerges at the intersection of our emotional response and their biological reality. And right now, that intersection is being manipulated by social media platforms, exotic pet traders, and well-meaning but misinformed content creators who genuinely don't understand the systems they're depicting. If you've made it this far, hit subscribe because we're going to keep exploring the gaps between what we think we know about animals and what the actual data reveals. Drop a comment and tell me, what cute animal do you think people